Unlucky. It turns out, can be inherited. Basil's dad discovered a landmine. He was about to dismantle it when, with a bang, the landmine exploded. Basil's dad didn't even have time to utter a word. He died on the spot. Basil, too, is an unlucky guy, originally watching TV in the store. He witnessed two groups outside engaged in a firefight. A bullet hit the glass, startling Basil. A car crashed into a utility pole with a thud. Basil got up to check, but the person on the motorcycle fled the scene. The other person in the car, unwilling to give up, continued firing even when lying on the ground. A shot went off, the motorcycle toppled, and the gun in his hand flew into the air, tracing an elegant arc. As it landed, the trigger shook. A shot right in the middle of Basil's forehead. However, Basil's head was too hard. The bullet didn't fully penetrate. He's quickly taken to the hospital. The surgery was halfway through and reached a dilemma. This patient's head is too hard. The bullet only went halfway in. Removing the bullet would turn him into a vegetable, but leaving it could be life-threatening. What to do? The doctor tossed a coin and decided not to remove it. This seems too hasty. They used a saw to cut off the exposed part of the bullet, stitched up the skin, and called it a day. Basil being hit by a bullet spread throughout the neighborhood. Everyone thought Basil had died. The landlord sold his belongings to a junk collector. After being discharged, Basil had nowhere to go. Lost his job to someone else, and a new store employee hailed Basil. She was at the scene of Basil's injury and found a bullet casing. Handing it to him, with nowhere to go, and hungry for several days with no money, Basil came up with a clever idea to make money. Since childhood, he enjoyed mimicking voices from TV. He walked into the underground passage. This man came up with a brilliant money-making idea. He saw a woman singing, so he walked behind her, and standing behind a pillar, began mimicking lip movements with deep emotion, as if the voice was truly his, constantly changing actions. He looked like a professional singer. Passers-by started tossing coins, but Basil couldn't bear it and shared the earnings with the woman. At night, Basil slept by the river, covered with paper scraps, listening to the songs from the cruise ship entering dreamland. When he got dirty, he followed the watering truck to wash his feet. An old man, feeling sorry for him, decided to take him in and brought him to his base. From the outside, the house looked like a junkyard. In this junkyard lived 6 extraordinary experts. The chef, whose cooking makes people forget their troubles. Einstein, who loves inventing, even made an automatic begging machine. The rangefinder is the 3rd member of this group. Just by looking, she knows Basil's head circumference precisely. The 4th member, Shakespeare. Casual words coming out of his mouth can make perfect essays. The 5th member, Iron Man. 70% of his body is made of metal, with a generator in his stomach and 3 titanium alloy pieces in his neck. Lastly, White Widow, who is more flexible than a gymnastics champion. This team is like the Avengers for the Cosmic Emperor. One day, Basil saw a familiar symbol. His father was killed by a landmine with a similar symbol. Basil turned around, and the sword symbol on this building was even more familiar. The bullet in his head had the same symbol. Basil took out the coin of fate and tossed it. Basil infiltrated the enemy's company. He entered with grace, observing the bullets in the display case, and looking at the boss's photo, imprinting his appearance in his mind. The security kicked Basil out without hesitation. Before leaving, he held Basil's head, poking his wound with his fingers. Basil became angrier. The seeds of revenge were burning in his heart. After the security guard left, Basil saw the landmine company staff moving flower baskets. He pretended to be a worker and sneaked in. On the stage, the landmine boss boasted about the power of his bombs, declaring that he would make the whole world use his landmines. This made the crowd applaud enthusiastically. Hearing this, Basil was furious. He had indirectly killed so many innocent people, and still had the guts to boast. He decided to teach him a lesson in his own way. Basil decided to retaliate against the landmine company's boss. He slipped onto the boss's rooftop, and used a homemade listening device through the chimney to eavesdrop on the conversation. At this moment, Basil needed to pee, so he urinated on the roof. The liquid flowed down the pipe, and came out from beneath a dog. The owner, wide-eyed, exclaimed at his dog's impressive urination. After an hour, Basil finally heard useful information. The boss was going to make a deal with the mob. A meeting scheduled for next Wednesday at 3 p.m. at the sports counter in the department store. Basil, in advance, disguised himself as a mannequin, eavesdropped on the boss and mob's detailed information exchange, and informed everyone at home. The team unanimously decided to help Basil teach this boss a lesson. The old man attracted the attention of the front door guards. Others, under the pretext of fixing furniture, distracted the elderly couple guarding the mailbox. Basil took the opportunity to go forward, fill the mailbox with water, and take out the drug from the trade. Everyone completed their tasks and then went to the airport. See how these people frame and shift blame. Shakespeare saw the mob involved in the trade and went up to sell necklaces. Meanwhile, the old man posed as an airport security guard, ready to strike at the right moment. He discreetly put the drug in the mob members' pockets and then drove Shakespeare away. The rest of the team pretended to be a family of 3, asking the security for directions. While they spoke, Iron Man used sausage to attract the guard dog's attention, and White Widow extended a hand from the box to cut the dog's leash. The dog, following the scent of the sausage, ran to the mob members and detected the smell of the drug. It barked incessantly. The guard came over to search, finding the drug on the mob members and taking them away. The landmine boss's big deal was ruined by Basil's team. Next up was the Bullet Boss. This boss is a bit eccentric, liking to collect human bones, Marilyn Monroe's teeth, and Matisse's fingers, all carefully preserved. Basil and 2 others pretended to be janitors, observing the Bullet Boss's every move from outside his office window. The boss was cautious, using a computer webcam to monitor Basil from behind, approaching for a closer look. But Basil pretended to be squeezing blackheads, narrowly avoiding exposure. Once the boss relaxed his guard, Basil used binoculars to observe, and found the trade information in the computer's mailbox. The teammates preemptively punctured the Bullet Boss's car tires, causing him to be stuck on the road. Basil impersonated the boss's secretary, persuading the opposing party to withdraw. With Shakespeare acting as the negotiator, Basil stayed behind the scenes, timely reminding Shakespeare of key points. This impersonation strategy was excellent. An agreement was reached for the trade to take place next Monday at 2 p.m. at the Eastern Station. Back home, Shakespeare called the landmine boss, providing him with the trade details identical to the Bullet Boss. When the time came, both parties sent representatives to the designated location. Basil deliberately broadcasted a warning, informing everyone about arms dealers selling weapons at the station. Just when both sides were astonished by the warning, the Old Man and Iron Man approached, took away the suitcases, and left the contact person in disarray. This was clearly the work of the other side. Upon returning home, Shakespeare began his miraculous acting skills, questioning the Bullet Boss about his absence, and expressing his intention to collaborate with the landmine boss. The Bullet Boss hung up the phone and furiously punched his computer. Shakespeare called the landmine boss again, claiming to want to collaborate with the Bullet Boss, successfully sowing discord. The anger of both bosses was ignited by Shakespeare, and they verbally attacked each other when their calls were connected. Basil felt that they were missing the final push, and decided to give them something explosive. White Widow crawled into the ventilation duct, and put sleeping pills in the security guard's coffee. When he fell asleep, she quietly opened the door. She drove a crane in and smashed the landmine boss's sports car to pieces, causing a loss of $200 million. The Bullet Boss didn't escape either. Basil took away his collection after many years. Now, these two became sworn enemies. But it didn't end there. Basil wanted to pull off a bigger stunt. In the landmine company warehouse, he placed a timed wasp nest. Iron Man entered a cannon to perform a human cannonball act. Before the time came, the cannon's connecting ring broke, sending Iron Man soaring higher than Superman. After a while, he fell straight into the river. Seeing that the time was approaching, Basil personally lit the fuse and took off. In an instant, he flew across to the other side of the river. At that moment, the wasp nest fell to the ground, blocking the warehouse workers. Basil took advantage of the situation and drove away a truck full of weapons, throwing them all into the river. Upon hearing the news, the landmine boss was furious. Biting his teeth, he bribed an employee of the Bullet Company, instructing her to insert steel balls into pipes during the lunch break. Unaware workers operated the machines normally, resulting in a clogged vent and a loud explosion in the warehouse. The explosion was so massive that even wigs of passers-by flew off. Glass shattered, and a radiator hit the landmine boss directly in the face. The Bullet Boss was undoubtedly the most unfortunate boss, losing an additional $0.4 billion on top of previous losses. This woman can dislocate her collarbones. She squeezed into a parcel box, used a small knife to cut open a package, and then searched for evidence of the crimes in the landmine boss's house. Hearing the boss returning, she could only temporarily hide in a closet, waiting for the right moment. When she heard no movement outside, White Widow prepared to come out. But just as she opened the closet door, she saw someone entering and had to go back in. The Bullet Boss couldn't swallow this humiliation, and sent elite assassins to attack the landmine boss's home. They stormed in, held guns to his head, tied him to a chair, and loaded one bullet in each of the 3 guns. They played Russian roulette with the landmine boss. All 3 guns were aiming at him, and he was too frightened that he wet himself. However, the shot was deflected, and the fireplace behind was lit up. The assassin casually walked up, wanting to light up a cigar. He opened the closet where White Widow was hiding. But no one was inside. Where did she go? The assassin couldn't find a lighter. So he lit a cigar from the fireplace. The landmine boss shivered with fear. Just then, the bullet boss entered. They both realized they had been tricked, temporarily setting aside their differences. They decided to join forces to take down Basil. Surprisingly, the woman was hiding in the refrigerator. She possessed bone-shrinking skills. After everyone left, White Widow emerged from the refrigerator. Now resembling a human popsicle, she called her teammates, requesting rescue. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of the two bosses' vehicles. The driver slammed the brakes but still collided. The pistols from the henchmen, the boss's watches, everything got magnetically attached to the car's roof. It turned out that the old man and his companions had arrived, activating a device. A massive suction cup on the car's roof lifted the entire vehicle. The front row henchmen jumped out and escaped, leaving only the two bosses trapped. At this moment, their watches acted like handcuffs, and the bosses couldn't free themselves, allowing Shakespeare to wear headsets on them. They listened to the sounds outside, given the impression that they were on an airplane. After landing and going through another journey, they heard the sound of sheep. Unveiling the headsets, they realized they had been taken to India. The bullet boss had a hand grenade inserted into his mouth, and the landmine boss had a landmine placed under his feet. This was retribution in kind. The landmine boss struggled to carry the bullet boss, teetering but afraid to move. Seated across from them, someone held a photo of civilians killed by arms dealers. The boss began to repent, apologizing for what he had done to their children and confessing his crimes. As they spoke, the two bosses began to argue, eventually falling to the ground. Strangely, both the landmine and hand grenades did not explode. Everything was fake, and all their words were recorded. This wasn't India. It was a large pit at a construction site. They uploaded the confessions of the two bosses to the internet. Both companies' stocks plummeted, and the bullet and landmine bosses would face 15 years of imprisonment. Basil and White Widow got together, and the other companions live happily ever after. The end. The film is called Micmacs. It's a great film and I recommend watching it. Remember to like and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.